Alright guys, I'm going to tell you how to develop a game. This is going to be a juicy one, guys, so just bear with me. A game is definitely a complicated beast. You need to have a focus and not go too off the rails. There's been times where games has been so ambitious that there's no focus. It doesn't mean you don't want to be ambitious. You can be ambitious as much as you want, but if there is no focus, you're not gonna make it with that ambition. In a game, you want to make sure that the game is fun and exciting and not tedious and repetitive. What makes a game good is a really good story, really good gameplay, and really good level design. At the same time, a game can be really good with gameplay but doesn't need a strong story. Then there could be an aspect of a game can have a really good story but doesn't need to have strong gameplay. In a game, you always have to have that balance. And in some cases, if you do something like the story or gameplay so terribly that it just affects the whole game. And one thing you have to make sure is a direction and stick with it. If you change the direction too much, you mess up your own game and it becomes directionless. There always needs to be a cohesive vision of the project. Yes, you can go in different directions, but if you don't have that focus, you will fail. You can be really ambitious, but there's aspects that you need to know. You want to make sure that there isn't game-breaking bugs, and make sure the game is fun, the story is good, and make sure you focus on that vision all the way through. If you don't follow through, you'll never succeed. Now, I've been wanting to tell you this, guys, for this some time now, you developers, but one thing that's been struggling lately with games is microtransactions and lack of customization. What makes a game really good is customization. And when you add a whole bunch of microtransactions, it dumbs down the experience. If you want to make a free-to-play or live service, I guess you need some microtransactions to fund your game, but don't make it tedious on purpose. The game needs to be fun and exciting, not repetitive and just downright have to use your credit card for everything. One thing about a game is that you need customization. If you dumb that down, your game is going to fail. And then there's the issue of, well, there is some games that go all their effort in art, but then add it as a microtransaction. Now, this is a difficult subject, because I know it's been happening in this generation. You put all your effort in the game, in the microtransaction, but then you have to pay absurdly prices. I mean, this is a new issue in the gaming industry, so that in of itself is really bad. But I think there needs to be that balance. You don't want to always hide it behind a paywall. You always want to make sure that the gameplay is earnable, whether it's your customization or armor. Whatever game you're playing, You need progression. And it's always important to have progression. If you don't have anything to do in a game, your game is going to fail. And the reliance on over monetization or over priority of making the game fun will make your game fail entirely. Like I said, there's always a balance. You can have mild microtransactions, but don't do it over the top to the point where your gamers just completely quit. And that's the part that makes it tedious. If you purposely make the grind unbearable, not only you're going to lose your player base, but your fans are going to be frustrated as hell. And here's another thing. You always want to make sure that your game has your roots. You can try new things, but you always want to make sure your game has its roots. That's what makes the game the game. You can be risky, you can try something new. Just make sure that feeling of the game and the foundation is what made it its game in the first place. Modern gaming is a tricky beast. If it was up to me, I'd say just make a classic experience. I mean, live service is such a mess. And you have to be as good as Fortnite to even make it. And even then, I don't think it's a good idea to be a Fortnite. Honestly, I would just focus on a classic experience. Classic gameplay, classic progression, classic customization. I mean, you can go crazy with customization. Just don't make it feel Fortnite and make it feel like a different game in of itself. You need to have that roots into your game. And if you don't have those roots, you're just going to fail. And the more you change things, fans are going to leave entirely. The gaming industry has been failing for so long, for multiple of reasons. Some that's been the developers and the gaming industry as a whole, which is their fault. But there's also outside factors like corporations always taking control of everything, and just outside reasons of politics and the economy going to hell. These are definitely troubling times for all of us, especially developers. I don't know what kind of advice I can give you in this situation. Just survive. I mean, it is a tough road for gaming entirely. And I don't blame for developers not wanting to take risk in these uncertain times. Heck, I even have a game myself that I make, but this is the worst time for me to develop my game. If I want to develop my game and be successful, I need to wait until the gaming industry is good again. At least sustainable in the long term. But I hope one day the glory days do come back, because we all want these glory days to come back. Gaming has always been a tricky beast. And you have to have balance between story, gameplay, and just make it fun. If you make a story rushed, if you make a game rushed with bugs and broken glitches, you're not going to succeed. And of course, the worst part about gaming is crunch. When you have to crunch and crunch just to get a game out the door. But there's also examples of horror stories that made the game even worse. But then there was successful stories like Halo 2. That was the most excessive crunch in gaming history. Yet it's the most beloved game of all time. And Halo 3, I consider that to be perfect. I've seen flaws in Halo 2, but man, that game was so awesome, and they just built upon it with Halo 3. Of course, I can give you the example of, for example, Halo 5. It was overambitious, had so many ideas, but the execution was very poor. If you do poor execution, and it also had an issues of too many ideas going in too many different directions and not having a cohesive direction. That's the part you don't want to fall into the trap of gaming. You have to have a cohesive vision. If you don't, you fail. And then we have successful stories like Halo 4's campaign. I know it changed the art style, but it was a really good game. It was the most emotional game of all time. Well, Halo Infinite had a cohesive vision. It felt like a classic Halo game to its roots, but tried new ideas. That's what gaming needs to be. You need to keep your roots while also taking risks and trying new things. If you don't have these two factors, it's going to collide against each other. And one thing you have to make sure is the gameplay is fun. And of course, there's this thing where you want to make sure that the game is challenging. I mean, games can be fun and challenging at the same time. It is always good to do a really good challenge, but just don't make it tedious and unfun. I mean, yes, you can have a challenge, but just make sure it's balanced. And then there's the issue of casual and hardcore. Depending on which audience you're going for, I know it is a very hard balance. There's the casual, which is a common gamer that always likes to play things casually. But then there's the hardcore players that is into the lore, the gameplay, the game itself, the game franchise at its core, and competitive as hell. I mean, and then there's the multiplayer, which is casual and competitive. There's the casual gameplay, which is very casual and chill, and then very competitively. Now, unfortunately, that's up to you guys of if you want to go casual or hardcore when it comes to competitiveness. That's ultimately up to you guys, because you could go have a game either way, and one side or the other isn't happy either way. You just need to have a cohesive vision and make sure your game is fun and the best game it can be.